Video, we're going to go over IRS Form 5695, residential energy credits. So there are a couple of new things about this credit in this tax form. I'll walk you through them before we actually go through the tax form itself. So for tax year 2022, the residential energy efficient property credit is now called the residential clean energy credit, which you'll note in part 1. The credit rate for property placed in service in 2022 through tax year 2032 is 30%. So when we go through step by step in part 1, you'll see that all of these costs, you can take a credit of up to 30% of those costs. The second new development is that the non-business energy property credit is now called the energy efficient home improvement credit, and this credit has been extended to property that was placed into service up until December 31st of 2022. So the purpose of this tax form, a couple of things. One, it's to help you figure and determine your residential energy credits, which are the residential clean energy credit and the energy efficient home improvement credit. You can also use this tax form to take any residential energy efficient property credit carry forward from tax year 2021, or to carry any unused portion of the 2022 energy credit forward to tax year 2023. So who can take the credits? You might be able to take the credit if you made energy saving home improvements located in the United States in the tax year 2022. So the IRS defines a home as a place where you lived in the tax year. This can be a houseboat, mobile home, cooperative apartment, condo, or a manufactured home that conforms to federal manufactured home construction and safety standards. In order to take this credit, you must also reduce the basis of your home, which might not affect you in the current tax year, but it could have tax impacts in the year that you sell your home. If you made energy saving improvements to more than one home that you used as a residence, such as a second home, then enter the total of those costs on one line. So we'll go through this tax forward right now. If you only have a credit carry forward from the previous tax year, you can go ahead and skip lines 1 through 11. But we'll start with part 1, the residential clean energy credit. Line 1 is qualified solar electric property costs. So these are all costs for property that uses solar energy to generate electricity for use in your home. If you have solar panels, or if you have roof panels that double as solar power, then they can qualify even if it is a structural component. However, the requirement is that it must also serve a purpose for energy production. So, for example, solar roofing tiles, solar roofing shingles can qualify for the credit. What would not qualify for the credit would be something like rafters that only serve a roofing or a structural function. So line 2, qualified solar water heating property costs. Solar water heating costs are costs for property to heat water for use in your home if at least half of the energy used by the solar water heating property is derived from the sun. So similar to line 1, even if it has multiple functions, as long as it meets the requirement for producing heat for water, then it can qualify for this credit. Qualified small wind energy property costs, line 3. These are the costs for property that uses a wind turbine to generate electricity for use in connection with your home. For all of these costs, it's important to note that the home does not have to be your main home. It can be a secondary home. Line 4, qualified geothermal heat pump property costs. These are costs for qualified geothermal heat pump property that's installed on or in connection with your home located in the United States. To qualify for the credit, the geothermal heat pump property must meet the requirements of the Energy Star program that are in effect at the time of purchase. Line 5, qualified biomass fuel property costs. The restriction is that it must use the burning of biomass fuel to heat a dwelling unit in the United States, used as a residence by the taxpayer, or to heat water for use in a dwelling unit. But the property must also have a thermal efficiency rating of at least 75%. The IRS defines biomass fuel as any plant-derived fuel that's available on a renewable or recurring basis. So on line 6, you're going to add lines 1 through 5, and then you're going to multiply the number that you come to in line 6A. You're going to multiply that by 30%. For line 7A, this is qualified fuel cell property. So these would be costs for fuel cell property in connection with your main home. This is considered to be an integrated system comprised of a fuel cell stack assembly and associated balance of plant components that converts a fuel into electricity using electrochemical means. And in order to qualify for the tax credit, this property must have a nameplate capacity of at least 1/2 kilowatt of electricity using an electrochemical process and an electricity-only generation efficiency greater than 30%. Now, just to note, any of these costs that are allocated to a swimming pool, a hot tub, or some other energy storage medium that has a function other than the function of such storage do not qualify for the residential clean energy credit. But if you did have a qualified fuel cell property, select yes or no based on whether or not it was in connection with your main home in the United States. If you selected no, then you cannot take the credit for the qualified fuel cell property, and you'll skip lines 7B through 11. But if you select yes, then you'll print the complete address of the main home where you installed the fuel cell property. In line 8, you'll enter the qualified fuel cell property costs. In line 9, you'll multiply the figure in line 8 by 30%. Line 10, you'll enter the kilowatt capacity of the property on line 8. You'll multiply that by $1,000, and you will take the smaller of those two. So if your fuel cell property costs were, say, $10,000, and that translates into a $3,000 credit versus that expenditure created the capacity to generate 5 kilowatts. You would put 5 kilowatts times 1,000, $5,000. You would take the smaller of those two tax credits. So you would enter the $3,000 number on line 11. For line 12, enter any credit carry forwards from 2021. So if you did not have any tax credits for 2022, this is where you would skip to. You would enter your carry forward from line 16 of last year's Form 5695. In line 13, you'll add the numbers from line 6B, line 11, and line 12. So all of the qualified costs for the first 5 items. Then line 11 contains the qualified fuel cell property costs. Line 12 contains your credit carry forward. This is your total that you enter into line 13. Now there is a worksheet that is contained in the instructions that you'll have to complete. So that worksheet, when you calculate, generates a limitation based on your income tax liability. So you're going to use this. Line 13 contains the maximum possible tax credit, but based on your tax situation, line 14 may represent a smaller number. And then the smaller of those two is your residential clean energy credit for the year. Now, if line 15 is less than line 13, then the difference is going to go into line 16, and this is your credit carry forward for the next tax year. So in part 2, there's a lot of questions here, and the IRS form instructions contain a decent amount of advice to walk you through this. So we'll kind of go over line by line. Just understand that you may need to refer to the instructions on the IRS website for further detail. So on line 17A, you'll answer the question yes, no, as to whether or not these property costs were for your main home in the United States. If you checked no, then you do not need to complete the rest of part 2 because you cannot take the energy efficient home improvement credit. But if you did select yes, then you'll print the complete address of the main home where you made these qualifying improvements. And note that the instructions will tell you this credit specifically is for your main home. The IRS has detailed instructions to help you understand what your main home would consider, but generally speaking, it would be the home that you resided in for the majority of the year if you resided in more than one place. So enter the street name and number in the address field. If you live in an apartment, do the unit number and then city, state, and zip code. And then answer yes or no as to whether or not the improvements were related to the construction of the home. So if you checked yes, you can only claim the energy efficient home improvement credit for qualifying improvements not related to the construction of the home. You cannot include expenses that were related to the construction of your home, even if the improvements were made after you moved in. So if it was part of the purchase price, you can't take it as a tax credit. Line 18 contains a lifetime limitation. So if you took an energy efficient home improvement credit in tax years 2006, 2007, or 2009 through 2021, you're going to need to complete a worksheet contained in the form instructions. And basically the worksheet contains all of the different credits that you might have taken over those previous tax years. You're going to add them up, and if that number is more than $500 over those previous tax years, you cannot take the tax credit. Lines 19A through 19H kind of goes through qualified energy efficiency improvements. So in line 19A, you are going to enter the amounts that you paid for any insulation. This could include vapor retarder, seal, that's specifically and primarily designed to reduce heat loss or gain in your home when installed in such a home. So if this material meets the International Energy Conservation Code that was in effect back in 2009, then you can enter those costs into line 19A. And then so 19B would be similar expenditures for any exterior door requirements that meet the 6.0 Energy Star program. Line 19C is any metal or asphalt roof that meets or exceeds Energy Star program requirements. Line 19D would be exterior windows and skylights that meet the Energy Star program requirements. from that, the maximum allowable cost for the credit is $2,000. That's already entered into the form for you. And if you had claimed window expenses prior to 2022, then you'll need to complete a window expense worksheet that looks very similar to the previous worksheet that we just discussed. And this goes back to previous tax years. If the total of all of these previous credits exceeds a certain amount, you're going to total all of those previously taken credits, and you're going to enter that into line 19F. So if that number ends up exceeding the $2,000 figure here, you're going to end up subtracting the difference. That will become 0, and that will be the number that you put into 19H. So this is kind of a backwards way of saying that if you've previously taken more than $2,000 of credits for window costs in the past, then you're probably not going to be able to take any credits under line 19. So you'll, as far as the window improvement part. So from here, you're going to add lines 19A. So that would be the insulation material, line 19B, which is the exterior doors, line 19C, which is the metal or asphalt roof, and then 19H, which is the smaller of either the window credit for this year or the adjusted credit if you've taken previous year credits. So all of those total up to the number that you're going to put into line 20. This number, then you multiply by 10%. And so in line 22, you're going to enter any residential energy property costs, including labor for on-site preparation or assembly, for in line 22A, energy efficient building property, and specifically that would be any of the following: an electric heat pump, that water heater that yields a uniform energy factor of at least 2.2 in the Department of Energy test procedure, an electric heat pump that achieves the highest efficiency tier established by the Consortium of Energy Efficiency that was placed into effect in 2009, a central air conditioner that achieves the highest efficiency tier in accordance with the Consortium for Energy Efficiency, or a natural gas, propane, or oil water heater that has a uniform energy factor of at least 0.82 or a thermal efficiency of at least 90%. You cannot enter more than $300 on line 22A. For line 22B, a qualified natural gas, propane, oil furnace, or hot water boiler, you cannot enter more than $150 here. And then line 22C is the advanced main air circulating fan used in a natural gas, propane, or oil furnace. You cannot enter more than $50 in line 22C. So for line 23, you're going to enter the sum of the lines 22A through 22C. In line 24, you're going to add line 21 to the sum that you have in line 23. And then you're going to compare this to the maximum allowable credit of $500. If you jointly occupied the home with someone that you are not married to and not filing a tax return with, then the instructions contain additional guidance for that situation. If there's any amount that you had from line 18, which is where you calculated the lifetime limitation, enter that number in line 26 and then subtract that from the $500 figure here. So if you've already taken more than $500 of credit, you're not going to be able to take the credit again. But if you've taken less, then you will subtract any previous total from $500, enter that into line 27, and then your available tax credit is the smaller of either line 24 or line 27. You also have to calculate your limitation based on tax liability. So you're going to enter any amount from the Energy Efficient Home Improvement Credit Limit worksheet that's contained in the form instructions. And you're going to use the smaller of either line 28 or 29. You'll also include that amount on Schedule 3 of your 1040 in line 5. If you have any additional questions, please hit us up. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can read a step-by-step article on our website. Simply go to teachmepersonalfinance.com, enter IRS Form 5695 in the search bar, and you can read this article. If you have any questions, please reach out. Thank you.